think that's a lot of because I came in right at the beginning of Rails 2. That's kind of where I am, and now I'm old and crotchety and set in my ways. So I ain't gonna change now. That's
See, you are like my favorite type. That's like my favorite type of developer to work with, like an older, cranky Rails developer who's just seen it all. But like the thing is like they've seen so many things that like I've not seen, and so like I've always latched onto those types of developers because I'm like, yeah, teach me like why is this a bad thing? And they're like, oh well, I saw them do this in Rails 3, and here's why it's bad, and all this other stuff. And like I learned so much from like that kind of style of like it is kind of mentorship in a way, but like just explaining like and listening and like learning about like I feel like the past of Rails like definitely can shine some light on the future, some
mhm.
decisions that could go awry. So I always make sure to keep those types of developers close because they've seen it, and they've seen the dangers that sometimes I start to tread towards.
Yeah, and that's something I was learning because I like the same thing when I was a new programmer, learning from more experienced programmers who could say, "Listen, don't learn Webpacker right now because let's see if it actually does something." Just because it's the hot newness, because that's a pattern that's been happening since computers were around. Oh, this week this is the new
Right.
hotness, and next week it's gone, and the old thing is back because it worked right. You know.
Yeah. Yep. I have here's my trick to that. I've gotten a lot better with that because I was one of those people, and then I experienced something that made me change my ways. And that is that it wasn't me the one who was doing it. And suddenly I got to see like, oh wait, is this how I am? But I like to take all this really cool fun stuff that I'm like, this would be great in our app. And I like to go on the weekends and play with it and then let all the little demons out there. So
Yeah.
then you come back to work and you're like, yeah, maybe not, like if you use something like I feel like you just have to try it a little bit. But what I have a problem with is a developer who has like read some blog posts over the weekend, maybe on Ruby Radar. And then they come in on Monday and they're like, dude, found this thing, it's going in. Here it is. And then they just present you with this PR, how they refactored half the code base to use this new gem or this new technique or whatever. And I'm like, dude, do this on your own time. Right. Now you're impacting my time and the
Right.
company's time. So there's my
And
advice. If you're one of those people, go play in a sandbox by yourself for a little bit and come
right.
back. That's what I had to do.
And that's it's kind of like it's one of the reasons, like I think Creston mentioned earlier, he waits quite a while before he upgrades something. Well, that's from hard lessons learned because like you get version 1 of something, and then right after that there's a point 1 where they fix all the stuff that they dicked up in the first one, and then you got to change it all again. So just wait for the point 1 to start with.
And
Yeah.
and especially if it goes to a major version, like when Ruby 3.0 hit, I'm like, oh crap, I'm not touching this thing for a good long time because it's going to take, with the number of gems that are in a typical Rails project that is 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, whatever it is, it's going to take a while for most of those to be compatible with Ruby 3.0 if they're doing anything unique. And some of them may not even support it. So you have to plan, okay, I'm going to wait a while to let it fall out. Who's going to update their gem that needs to, that'll still work? And then what's going to be left that is not working that, okay, I got to come up with an alternative solution for, write something myself, find a new gem that does it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I that you made me think. Do you guys? I guess you guys have some ideas on the new type support that's in Ruby 3.0 and 3.1.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of tightly typed languages, having spent a better part of a decade dealing with .NET. If I see typed languages, it kind of makes me a little nauseous now because .NET was just such a horrible experience. And there were a lot of bad times that had to do with the typing. And I was like, can't this thing just let me make an object and be done with it? Because I was also working in Ruby at the time and being able to compare the two. And I'm like, oh God, stop with the typing. It's just not good. Now,
Right.
There have been a couple of times in my career where, especially in an API situation, where, man, if I had had this strongly typed, I could have prevented this bad thing from happening. But that's so rare that it's just not worth all the other guff.
Yeah.
What do you guys think for Ruby on Rails as a person framework? I'm not sure I entirely understand that question.
The question.
Elaborate, please.
As a one-person framework, maybe. Yeah, I need some clarification on that. Yeah, I always like to get people who have been around a long time's opinions on it because they're always interesting. Like, I'm not a fan, but
out of curiosity, what's the
areas.
reason they introduced typing? Like, what was the issue that caused them to do? I haven't done research into that as to why.
You know, I'm sure there's many reasons why, but I'm just going to give you the summary of what I think it was. People bitching. I think people just have been asking and complaining for it for so long. And then Stripe was like, well, we need it, so we're going to build our own. And then Matt's was like, okay, fine. Like, we'll create a way for you to do it, but it's not going to be a first party thing like that you can add to your Ruby. Like, we're not changing the syntax. Like, we're introducing this RBS thing, and it'll all be there. And that will allow, you know, people with sorbet to tie into like our like Ruby like types with RBS instead. As to why it was added, I mean, I don't know. TypeScript, I don't know. I figure just like everyone wants types because, you know, people want typed Python, they want typed JavaScript. You know, Facebook made typed PHP, which is just one of their crimes, you know. So I feel like everyone just kind of, I feel like there's a group of developers who want types, and, you know, they kept clamoring for it. And the only way is to either make something like TypeScript for Ruby, or introduce it, or just because Matt's has always been like, no, I don't want types, right? But this is kind of like a healthy, it's like a healthy compromise, almost healthy to the point where like it's not helpful, but like, you know, still healthy.
Yeah, well, at least it's not forcing people who know better into that. So,
right,
you know, Matt is a smart boy.
Yes.
If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here. Or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.